Not all cruise lines are created equal, and if you pick the wrong one, it can completely ruin your cruise experience. But there's one thing that nobody tells you until it's too late, and it's why some cruise lines are massively overhyped, while others are just criminally underrated. Because even if a cruise looks amazing online, it can still completely fail to deliver once you're actually on board. I've worked on cruise ships for years. I've seen what makes a cruise line truly great, but I've also seen what quietly ruins the experience for most passengers. So in this video, I'm ranking every major cruise line from worst to must try, based on the things that actually impact your holiday. And one of these cruise lines might just be the biggest waste of money in the entire industry. So let's start at the very bottom of the list with Fred Olsen. Now, over the years, I've met a lot of loyal Fred Olsen passengers. They tend to book early, sail often, and stick to what they know. But if you're travelling with Fred Olsen for the first time, you'll notice something quite quickly. It's not just the ships that feel old-fashioned, it's the entire experience. The onboard activities and entertainment. This whole section just kind of feels like there's not a lot happening on board, and that's kind of intentional. The daily schedule is very light. You'll get a quiz, a port lecture, and maybe a talk about some local history. There are a few games here and there, but the pace is slow, and there's very little variety across the cruise. Evening entertainment is basic. A small band, maybe a low-key cabaret act or some themed dance night. Fred Olsen isn't trying to dazzle you. It's trying to create a calm, familiar routine. And for some passengers, that's really comforting. But for the others, it can kind of feel like the cruise never quite gets started. There's no casino, there's no real nightlife, and by 9:30, most of the public spaces have gone quiet. Not because everyone's asleep, but because there just isn't really much else to do. While Fred Olsen ships are older, you do feel it most in the cabins. They're small, they're basic, and they're not designed with, I suppose, modern needs in mind. The storage on board is tight, the bathrooms are narrow, and the decor, even after some updates, still looks like it came from a 2005 catalogue. And if you're in a lower cabin category, don't be surprised if your ocean view is a porthole half blocked by a lifeboat. Now, to be fair to Fred Olsen, they are clean and the stewards do their job well. But if you're used to fresh design or thoughtful layouts, these cabins will feel like a bit of a downgrade. There are some larger cabins though, with a bit more space, but once you compare that price to what you could get on other cruise lines, the value just isn't there. Now, let's talk about the food, because food is one of the biggest letdowns on board. Not because it's awful, but because it's just so average. The menus are simple, and the whole dining experience kind of feels like it's just not really going anywhere. Now, food is subjective, but the presentation's plain, service is friendly, but it's slow, and you'll often wait a long time between courses. But if you're hoping for a variety of bold flavours, or even just something new now and then, you foodie cruisers, you're not going to enjoy it. Even in the buffet, it feels limited, both in the space and the selection, and it doesn't change much from day to day. And while they do offer onboard afternoon tea, which some guests do enjoy, it's not enough to redeem the rest of the dining experience. They focus mainly on Northern Europe, the British Isles and the Canary Islands, but they do also some longer voyages to Iceland and the Arctic. Now, these itineraries are unique, but you can visit most of the same places on ships that are far more comfortable, far more modern, and a lot of cruisers are saying far more entertaining. So who is Fred Olsen really for? Well, I would say it's for traditional cruisers who want a very quiet ship, minimal stimulation and a set routine from the moment you board, and people who genuinely enjoy being around the same passengers in the same spaces. If you're looking to unplug, read on deck and avoid surprises, Fred Olsen does deliver on that. There's no pressure to dress up, there's no noisy announcements and no packed schedule. If you're someone who's looking for any sort of variety, energy or a modern cruise experience, Fred Olsen's going to feel out of place quite quickly. Now, don't get me wrong, Fred Olsen isn't the worst cruise line because it's falling apart. It's the worst because it simply doesn't meet the expectation of most cruisers. And when you compare the price to what you could get elsewhere, it just doesn't add up. So final score for Fred Olsen? 3 out of 10. Not terrible, just a little bit out of touch. These next cruise lines are some of the biggest names in the world, with millions of loyal passengers. And yet, I'm still telling you to ignore them. Why? Well, this line once led the pack in flexibility and innovation, but lately it's become harder and harder to recommend. Norwegian was once one of the most exciting cruise lines at sea. They introduced freestyle cruising before anyone else. No dress codes, no set dining times, no rules, unless you wanted them. And for a while, it worked, and it worked really well. It was fresh, casual, and a real alternative to those old school cruise experiences. But in the last few years, something's changed. The value's gone down, the nickel and diming has just gone up, and even loyal passengers are starting to look elsewhere. Onboard activities and entertainment on board Norwegian still offer great features, especially on their newer ships. You'll find things like go-karts, water slides, and virtual reality games on ships like Prima and Encore. And the shows, when done well, can be a highlight. Six and Beetlejuice are popular productions on board that hold up next to anything at sea. But here's the problem, not every ship is going to have those features. And even on the newest vessels, many of the best experiences come with a change. Want to race go-karts at sea? That's going to cost you. Laser tag? Also extra. And the theatre shows? You need a reservation. They fill up super fast. It's a strange balance. Norwegian wants to feel upscale, but ends up feeling a little bit restrictive. You can have fun, but you're constantly reminded of what it's costing you on board. Now, cabins on board Norwegian vary widely. The newer ships have bright, modern rooms with clean design and decent layouts, especially in those balcony and suite cabins. But on the other hand, the older ships in the fleet still carry some dated cabins that just haven't aged very well. I would say the space is tight across all categories, especially bathrooms, but where doesn't it? And many cruisers comment that Norwegian's standard staterooms feel smaller than the industry average. That being said, Norwegian does get points for their innovation. Norwegian was one of the first to offer solo cabins with their own lounge. Perfect for solo travellers who don't want to pay for a supplement. And not forgetting the Haven, their ship within a ship suite complex, which offers a more premium, private experience at sea. But it's at a premium price. Norwegian Cruise Line's food used to be a standout. The main dining rooms were flexible, the buffets were definitely generous, and the specialty dining felt like a real treat. Today, it just feels a bit uneven. The complimentary food has taken, I would say, a noticeable step back. Menus are more limited, dishes feel a bit repetitive, and service just feels a bit distracted, especially at those peak times. Specialty dining like Cagney's Steakhouse or La Bistro still delivers, but again, you're going to pay those upcharges, and on most itineraries, that cost adds up quickly, especially if you want a better experience night after night. Norwegian sails worldwide, including the Caribbean, Alaska, Europe, and their private island, Great Stirrup Cay. They also offer exclusive Hawaii itineraries all year round, something most cruise lines can't do. But again, the price rarely matches the onboard experience. Norwegian is best for those cruisers who want flexibility, who want newer ships, and don't actually mind paying a bit more for the extra, I suppose, the best parts of the experience. If you're happy to build your cruise around a la carte and you know the ships well, you can still have a very, very good time, don't get me wrong. But if you're looking for best value for money, consistency, or a more traditional cruise line feel, you're going to feel frustrated very quickly. Norwegian used to feel like freedom, and today it feels like a series of decisions and series of price tags, and that all adds up by the end of your cruise. It's not terrible. In fact, parts of it are still excellent, but it becomes too inconsistent, too commercial, and way too complicated to most travellers, especially first-timers looking for a bit of ease. Final score, 4.5 out of 10. Now, let's move on to a cruise line that offers beautiful ships at decent prices, but often forgets that design alone doesn't make for a great cruise. MSC is one of the fastest growing cruise lines in the world. Their ships are big, they're sleek, and they are packed with impressive features. And they're often cheaper than things like Royal Caribbean. But once you're on board, it becomes clear. MSC is trying to be everything to everyone. And in the process, it's struggling to truly deliver to anyone. On the surface, it looks like a premium experience. But the deeper you go, the more you realise it's all just a little bit disjointed. Onboard activities and entertainment. Now this department, MSC ships are beautiful. That part is undeniable. They have glossy atriums, massive LED screens, and pool decks that feel more like a resort than a cruise ship. There's no shortage of entertainment either. Nightly theatre shows, a couple of water slides on the newer ships, and a handful of theme nights. But the problem here isn't the features, it's how they're run. The entertainment often feels lost in translation. The shows are high energy, but they lack some storytelling or a bit of direction. And the daily schedule, it's there, but the pacing just feels off, and the announcements often come in 4 or 5 languages at a time, which isn't bad, and it's actually quite inclusive. Now, cabins on MSC are one of the stronger points, especially for their price. They're well designed, modern, and usually they offer more storage than you'd expect. Even the inside cabins feel clean and a bit contemporary. They have good lighting and sleek finishes. Their balcony cabins are also quite spacious, and the suites, particularly in the yacht club, are surprisingly luxurious. But that experience can vary depending on your room category. Lower tier cabins can feel a little bit isolated from the rest of the ship's design, and service quality tends to drop off the further you get from the top tier categories. MSC's food has improved over the years, but it still doesn't hold up against most American-based cruise lines. In the main dining room, you'll get a rotating menu of European-style dishes. Now, food is very subjective, but the buffet is fast-moving and feels a bit chaotic during those peak times. They do, however, offer specialty dining, a steakhouse, sushi, and Mediterranean options. And these are generally much better than the included meals. But at that point, a cheap cruise fare doesn't feel so cheap anymore. You're often paying less up front with MSC, but then spending more to get a dining experience that rivals other cruise lines' basic offerings. MSC focuses heavily on the Mediterranean, Northern Europe, and the Caribbean, with increasing US departures each year. But wherever they sail, the real draw is the ship itself. I think you're going to love MSC if you're a budget-conscious traveller who cares more about the ship's look than the service or the structure. If you want a flashy ship and don't mind a few little, speed bumps along the way and just want to cruise for cheap, MSC definitely delivers on that front. It's also a decent option for those European travellers who feel at home with multilingual announcements and a more international crowd. It's just not for everybody. MSC isn't bad, it's just inconsistent. It overpromises with beautiful ships and then kind of underdelivers on the things that actually make a cruise feel smooth and enjoyable. And that's exactly why they fall into this ignore category. Final score, 5 out of 10. Next up is a cruise line that doesn't pretend to be fancy, but delivers exactly what it promises. And for the right traveller, that's more than enough. Carnival Cruises is one of the biggest names in cruising, and for good reason. They're affordable, casual, and focused on one thing above all else: fun. You're not booking a Carnival cruise for upscale service or some quiet sophistication. You're booking it because you want to let loose, not overthink, and just have a few drinks. It's loud, it's busy, and it's packed with things to do. And if you know that going in, it can be one of the best value cruises that you'll ever take. Carnival leans into its nickname, the fun ships, and for the most part, it lives up to it. You'll find live music, trivia games, karaoke, and poolside contests throughout the day. The newer ships like the Mardi Gras and Celebration have added more options, like the roller coasters at sea, large water parks, and those theme bars. But even the older ships try to keep things as lively as possible, with things like packed schedules and something happening in near enough every venue. The energy is high, you'll hear music from morning till noon, and if you like a ship with buzz, Carnival delivers it without trying to be something it's not. Carnival's cabins are surprisingly good for their price point. They're simple, but thoughtfully laid out, with more space than you'd expect in the standard categories. The colour schemes vary by the ship's age, but the newer ships have a fresher, more modern feel. And across the fleet, beds are comfortable, showers are decent, and storage is better than the average. And while the suites don't offer, luxury level perks, they do give you more space and a few nice little extras. Carnival's food is all about comfort. The main dining rooms serve American-style meals, steaks, pastas, seafood, and rotating nightly features. It's not gourmet, don't get me wrong, but it's consistent, and they handle volume better than most cruise lines. Where Carnival shines is in its casual venues. Guy's Burger Joint, Beluga Canteen and Big Chicken on the newer ships. All included, and they're good. Quick, flavourful, and better than you'd expect for a budget cruise line. Overall, you won't go hungry on a Carnival cruise. And while it won't win culinary awards, the variety and crowd pleasers are part of the charm. Carnival ships sail primarily in the Caribbean, Bahamas and Mexico, but also covers Alaska, Europe and Australia. The ports are familiar, the beach days are easy, and most itineraries are short and very convenient for those US-based cruisers. Carnival is perfect for those travellers who want casual, upbeat vacation, without formalities or the expectations. I'd say it's ideal for families. Sometimes, if you want a bit of a wild cruise and want a great atmosphere at a decent price. On the other hand, if you're someone looking for peace, polish, or a quieter crowd, you're likely going to find Carnival cruises quite overwhelming. Carnival isn't trying to be fancy, and that's kind of why it works really well. It knows its audience, and it sticks to what it does best. Final score, 6 out of 10. Loud, lively, and better than you might expect if you go in with the right mindset. Now, next up, I'm talking about Princess cruises. Princess, I suppose, is one of the most trusted names in the cruising industry, especially for guests who want a more relaxed, grown-up experience. It's not flashy. Instead, Princess offers calm ships, solid food, and a refined pace that appeals to travellers who prefer quiet over that chaos. For many, it's the perfect in-between. Not budget, it's not luxury, but something comfortably in the middle, and that's why it has so many loyal cruisers. One thing Princess does well is creating space to unwind. You'll find quiet corners, shaded decks, and venues that aren't overrun with noise and flashing lights all the time. Princess cabins are clean, comfortable, and very, very consistent across the entire fleet. They're not huge, especially in the inside and ocean view categories, but the layout is smart and the beds are among some of the most comfortable at sea. Newer ships like the Sun Princess and Discovery Princess have fresher decor and slightly more modern finishes. But even on the older ships, the cabins are well maintained with plenty of storage and a bit of a homey feel. Suites come with extra perks like priority boarding and upgraded amenities, but the standard balcony cabins are a solid choice for most cruisers. Now, the food on Princess is quietly good. The main dining rooms rotate menus each night with classic favourites and seasonal specials, and the quality is usually quite consistent. Buffets offer decent variety at lunch and dinner, and while the presentation is simple, the flavours hold up better than many competitors. The real highlight is the specialty dining. Crown Grill, which is a steakhouse, Sabatini's, which is Italian, and the Chef's Table experience are all popular, and for good reason, and they're genuinely worth the extra cost if you want a more upscale evening. Princess ships sail nearly everywhere, but they're especially strong in Alaska, Europe, and the South Pacific. Their itineraries are often port-rich, with longer stays and fewer sea days. Princess Cruises is going to be a great match for cruisers who want a calmer, more traditional experience without going full luxury. I'd say it's ideal for couples, solo travellers, and some retirees who want a quiet, relaxed evening, relaxed dining, and some peaceful sea days. If you've outgrown the loud party ships, but don't need tuxedos and white gloves, Princess hits that sweet spot. If you're looking for adrenaline, nightlife, or over-the-top shows, Princess will probably feel a little bit too slow for you. Now, while Princess is dependable, it's not pushing the industry forward. However, for the right traveller, Princess offers exactly what you're hoping for. And that kind of predictability is severely underrated. Final score, 6.5 out of 10. Now, next up is a cruise line that almost every single cruiser has heard of, but just because it's everywhere doesn't mean that it's right for everyone. Royal Caribbean is the cruise line that most people picture when they think of a big ship vacation. It's massive, it's exciting, and it's packed with options from surfing and ziplining to ice skating and Broadway shows. If you're travelling with a group, chances are Royal has something for everyone. Onboard activities and entertainment. Now, this is where Royal Caribbean shines. No other mainstream cruise line offers this much on board. And when it comes to the entertainment, they're still one of the best. You'll find full-scale Broadway productions, acrobatic aqua theatre shows, and surprisingly good live music throughout the ship. Now, the problem here isn't the quality, it's the scale. These ships are huge, and sometimes the best experiences or hidden behind long lines or hard to get to reservations. If you're wanting a cruise that feels like a theme park at sea, Royal delivers on that. But you'll need a plan, otherwise you're going to miss half of it. Cabins on Royal are generally very good. Even inside cabins on newer ships are well designed and thoughtfully laid out. Balcony cabins offer plenty of space and storage, and suites come with access to lounges, dining, and even your own concierge on select ships. But what's really impressive is the range. Everything from virtual window inside cabins to massive 2-story suites with slides and hot tubs. Of course, not all the ships are created equal. The older ships have dated cabins, fewer amenities, so if you're booking for the same price, you might not get the full Royal experience. Dining with Royal Caribbean is a bit of a mixed bag. The complimentary options like the main dining room and the Windjammer buffet are solid, but they're not spectacular. Menus feel a little bit repetitive, especially on those long cruises, and service can be a hit or miss depending on the sailing and how many guests are on board. But the real strength is the specialty dining. Chops Grill, Giovanni's Italian, and Wonderland are consistently praised, and they do add value if you're willing to pay extra. Casual dining options like Sorrento's Pizza and the Cafe Promenade help fill those gaps between meals. You'll never go hungry on a Royal cruise, but if food is a highlight of your vacation, you might find the base experience underwhelming. Royal Caribbean sails nearly everywhere, including the Caribbean, of course, Alaska, Europe, and Asia, with frequent stops at their private island, Perfect Day at Coco Cay. It's one of the most well-rounded private destinations at sea, offering water parks, beach clubs, and more. But some of the attractions come with a hefty price tag, of course. Royal is ideal for families, multi-generational groups, and those cruisers who want non-stop action and entertainment. If you like options, and I mean lots of options, and don't mind a busy atmosphere, Royal can feel like a floating resort just built for you. But if you prefer peace, small ships, or a slower pace, Royal Caribbean will likely feel far too overwhelming. Now, Royal Caribbean is undeniably impressive. They built a product that works for a massive audience, and they do it better than almost everyone else in terms of onboard options and variety. But part of what keeps it from being a must-try is exactly that. Most people already have. And while the scale is stunning, the experience isn't always as personal, especially if you value quiet moments or a more relaxed pace. Final score, 7.5 out of 10. Next up is a cruise line that breaks every rule in the book, but still it manages to surprise people, I would say, in the best possible way. Virgin Voyages is adults only. It's design forward and proudly untraditional. But why is this cruise line different? There's no buffets, no kids, no formal dress codes, and no fixed dining times. For some, that's a red flag. For others, it's the most refreshing cruise they've ever taken. Underneath the bold branding, it's a cruise that's remarkably calm, thoughtful, and well run. It's not a party ship, it's not a millennial playground, it's something entirely different. And whether you like yoga at sunrise or cocktails at midnight, Virgin makes space for both. Onboard activities and entertainment. Now, Virgin isn't going to be doing those Broadway-style productions. Instead, entertainment is immersive, it's kept more casual, and often a lot more interactive. Fitness is a big focus on board, from spin classes and boxing to sunrise yoga and meditation. And everything's included. We love the bargains. Cabins are small and modern, with clean lines and clever tech. The beds convert from sofas during the day, a feature that some people like and others ignore. But either way, the mattress is quite comfortable. Bathrooms are compact but well designed, and lighting throughout the room is adjustable to match your mood. Where Virgin really wins is in its balcony cabins. Each one includes that red hammock I was talking about, and it quickly becomes a lot of people's favourite spots. There's something special about watching the ocean view from your own private swing. Suites, called the Rockstar Quarters, come with perks like VIP lounges and priority boarding. But most guests are just as happy in a standard balcony, which kinda tells you something. On board Virgin, the food is consistently excellent, and it's all included. There's no buffet, no main dining room, just over 20 different restaurants, each with its own theme and menu. Menus are a la carte, service feels like a real restaurant, and best of all, no extra charges. We love that. There's also a casual food hall, 24-hour diner, and great coffee throughout the ship. We all know how much we need a coffee on those sea days. If food is a priority for you, especially variety and quality, this one is one of the strongest offerings in the industry, I'd say. Let me know what you think your favourite food is on board your favourite ships. Virgin primarily sails the Caribbean and the Mediterranean, with some repositioning to Australia and the UK. Their private beach club in Bimini is a standout. Virgin is perfect for adult travellers who want a modern, relaxed cruise experience that doesn't feel like it was built for families or tradition. If you want good food, calm mornings, great design, and the freedom to dip in and out of social spaces, this is your cruise. It's also a brilliant option for couples, solo travellers, and anyone who enjoys a boutique hotel vibe. If you're cruising with kids or want a highly structured traditional cruise with dress codes and those Broadway style shows, Virgin isn't going to be for you. Virgin Voyages is doing something different, and it works for a lot of people. Final score, 8 out of 10. And finally, a cruise line that doesn't shout for your attention, but it quietly delivers on one of the most refined, relaxing experiences at sea. Holland America isn't trendy, it's not the biggest, it's not the flashiest, or it's not even the most talked about cruise. But if you ask me, and experienced cruisers, which line consistently exceeds expectations, this name comes up again and again. Now, on board, you're not going to find those girl cots or water slides here. But what you will find is very, very thoughtful programming that respects your time and your tastes, like cooking demonstrations, live chamber music, and detonation lectures led by actual experts. Evenings are filled with polished, well-paced entertainment. The main theatre offers rotating performances, a mix of singers, musicians, and specialty acts. But the real highlight is the live music venues. Between the Rolling Stone Rock Room, BB King's Blue Club, and Billboard on board, Holland America's music scene is second to none. The talent is top tier, the venues feel intimate, and it all happens without ever feeling loud or overbearing. The energy's here, but it's also very well balanced. It just doesn't feel chaotic. Holland America cabins, I would say, are among the most comfortable in their class. The design leans more traditional, it's got warm woods, soft lighting, and classic touches. But they're spacious, quiet, and very thoughtfully arranged. Even inside cabins can feel roomy, thanks to clean layout and a lack of unnecessary clutter. The suites are a step up in both comfort and service, offering extra space and access to exclusive lounges. Dining on board Holland America is reliably good, especially for those people who enjoy classic dishes done well. The main dining room offers a rotating menu with steaks, seafood, and regional specialities, and the consistency here is better than most mainstream cruise lines. I'd say the buffet feels more refined than a typical grab and go. Again, the real standout here has got to be the specialty dining. Pinnacle Grill, Taramind, which is Asian fusion, and they've got some Italian, which are all excellent, and the upcharge is quite reasonable for what you're going to get. There's also a focus on wine, cheese, and culinary enrichment. Holland America is best known for Alaska, and for very, very good reason. They've been sailing there longer than anyone. It shows in their itineraries, excursions, and onboard programming. They also offer extended itineraries in Europe, the South Pacific, and they go through the Panama Canal, often with longer port days and fewer crowds. I would say Holland America is for travellers who want slower pace, more mature atmosphere, and a ship that's designed around comfort instead of that chaos. But if you're a traveller who's looking for a more adrenaline-filled, water slide vibe or high-energy nightlife, you might be better off suited somewhere else. If you've cruised before and want something quieter, smarter, and more personal, Holland America is a solid choice. Final score, 9 out of 10. And if you're sat there wondering, well, why are my favourite cruise lines not on this list? Don't worry, other cruise lines like Disney and Celebrity are covered in a separate deep dive video, which you can watch right here.